I go to these meetings and I turn around and I say I'm an alcoholic, but I'm a lot more than that. I'm a dad, I'm a friend, I'm a partner, I'm a son, I'm a lot of things. I'm a good decorator, good at a lot of things. I've got quite a good vocabulary. I like songwriting, I can play the guitar.
So I've got a degree in biomedical science. I specialised in microbiology, and then I've done a master's in cancer services. So I was a bowel cancer screening practitioner for the North of Tyne.
I'm a very vibrant person. I like to think I'm quite articulate. I'm really strong-willed, very independent.
I enjoy walking. Like, I call myself a rambler. I also enjoy writing. I'm a creative writer.
I love art. I love old paintings. I love old drawings like oils, watercolours, castles, museums, anything like that with a history.
I tend to head towards more outdoor stuff because I know how to cope with it. And I think that's what helped me being homeless and being able to set up a tent and everything and what have you. You know, it helped me knowing the basic skills, whereas most people who are sleeping rough don't know.
I'm just concentrating with rehab at the minute, like me volunteer work and that, get myself all sorted. One thing I'm proud of is doing my ambassadors and me 12 steps.
I'm a bowel cancer screening practitioner, but I'm also an alcoholic. And I think that statement is very, you know, people forget what I am. They just remember that I'm an alcoholic. So when an alcoholic's screaming out for help, it doesn't happen. Nobody wakes up one day and says, right, today I'm going to be an addict. People lose everything. And it's, you know, nobody decides that by choice. Trauma is my earliest memory. My earliest memory is being abused by a family member. That's my earliest memory.
I remember what would be like an older guy would probably be like a sexual predator. But I was 7 and so I believe like I was a survivor of sexual abuse. I already had an experience of like sexual violence, like just stuff that people were trying to do to me that I didn't want to be done to me.
I can remember as far back as probably being about 2 or 3, just certain things with my mum was a lovely, lovely person, but she herself had issues with alcohol.
It's like cousins and that, I was seeing them like taking drugs and like drink. The dealers were like all over the street at the time, the one with doorsteps.
Growing up was difficult. My parents are both from the northeast, and my parents' parents were alcoholics. So my dad's mum was an alcoholic, my mum's dad was an alcoholic. They'd both had significant traumas.
It was scary. It was really scary being little, and I'd seen a lot of abuse from our boyfriends. You know, I was a little bit myself. You know, brought into some things. So it wasn't good. You know, my dad used to drop us off on a Sunday night, and he could always see the state my mum was in, and he would still leave us.
One thing led to another. I didn't realise it was abuse at the time. You don't, when you're at a young age, you know, you don't know what's right and what's wrong. And then when you get to an age where you realise it's wrong, then you start and blame yourself and think, why me? And that's really when alcohol came into play with me when I was as young as 12. I remember drinking and thinking it numbed out my guilt and shame. Even though I was a child, I still felt very guilty and very shameful for what happened to me.
Because in my hometown, it was quite a industrial, small town. You weren't allowed to talk about things, to share things outside of the family unit. I think it's because it's a lot of shame.
As I've been through trauma and different things, alcohol alters the way you're thinking. So then I become addicted to alcohol because I wanted to alter how I thought and numb the pain.
And so I started to want to drink from a very young age. But as soon as I drank, I realised that feeling was amazing. And it made me feel far less anxious and sad and lonely than I had been. And so You know, by the age of 14, I was using alcohol and drugs daily.
I started using solvents like air fresheners and things like that, gas, Tipex thinners. I started getting in a lot of trouble with the police, and I found myself with social services and social workers, drinking, using with the wrong people.
Well, I was the black sheep. My sisters couldn't do no wrong. But them like had drug thingies and that, but not as bad as me, obviously. But my dad was a heavy drinker. Then I quieted down for a couple of years. Then I had the Ben. I was 30 when I had the Ben. After I had the Ben, we was about 3, that's when the drinking started again.
I was into like alcohol at quite a young age, drugs like, you know, like cannabis, that sort of thing. I was using those to cope, to maybe pretend I wasn't there. The suicidal thoughts, the self-sabotage was definitely part of my young life. From 7, I would say, I was like that, constantly wanting to destroy myself.
When my son died, bang, it took more and more and more of a hold.
I was just like taking it from me breakfast, tea and supper, just to get that high and like block everything out.
Oh, just a dark, depressive hole, really, no way out. Which I didn't think that at the time, you know. I just enjoyed using drugs and this, that and the other. I thought it was fun, but really it was because of all other things that I had going on. Really, I can see that now.
My life just got worse and worse, and I got away with drinking daily for a very long time until I was not getting away with it anymore. I've learnt now that alcoholism is a progressive illness, and mine got progressively worse over a very long time, to the point where I had ruined my cognitive function, my mental ability. My mind was completely gone at this point.
Because of those experiences, I definitely self-sabotaged myself, you know. Like I wanted to destroy myself in terms of whether that would, whether I wanted to kill myself, you know, take pills to end my life, which I tried to do that a few times from early childhood all the way into my adult years, even now. But it would manifest itself in ways that, like my addiction. So I would put myself in dangerous situations. That was like a form of self-harm to me.
So alcohol for me numbed the pain, altered my way of thinking at the beginning. But then what alcohol did for me at the end of my drinking, I couldn't function without it. Then it got to the point where I was using alcohol purposely to try and kill myself. Because I knew I've got a brain injury, you see, and it's degenerative, and alcohol affects that part of my head, and I was fully aware of that. But I had numerous attempts of suicide anyway, which didn't work. So towards the end, that's what I was using alcohol for.
That was what the end of addiction looked like for me. Very chaotic, blackout pretty instantly when I was drinking. So I would end up in many places that I shouldn't have been. I would end up in very dangerous situations. I would have really bad falls in that kind of last year of my drinking, where I fractured my skull and broke my ribs. I would lose my children, my job, everything that I loved. And still, I couldn't really articulate what was wrong with me.
I had a daughter, and I had social services involved, and she got put up for adoption. And they said, that was when they said, look, you've got to stop drinking and stop using. And then I thought, well, this is going to be all right. I can do this, you know. But then I realised I really couldn't, and I had really bad issues. I tried to cover it up to social services and all that kind of thing, probably thinking I could get away with it, you know. And I just couldn't, and it just got to a certain point where I couldn't go on, you know.
I just suddenly got to about 23 and I noticed that if I went to the pub to watch the match and that, I couldn't just leave the pub. I couldn't just do the things that other people did. I had to have a drink.
I'm thinking, right, I've lost my marriage. I've now lost my son. What am I going to do? So with the help of this agency, them were the ones that initially helped me and got me on track again with Wing for the outward bound stuff.
I would say 2 years ago was probably the time when I just couldn't deal with it anymore. I needed to get help. I needed to deal with it because it was taking over my life, everything. I don't think I was living before. I think I was just existing. So 2 years ago, I finally said to myself, right, I need help. I said to myself I was a sex addict, a drug addict, and an alcoholic.
So towards the end of my drinking, probably about the last 6 months, I had been picked up by the police quite a few times with absolutely no recollections. My blackouts were lasting much longer than they ever had done. And the last drink, I woke up in Middle Engine Lane. If they told me that I had done something really, really bad, I would have believed it at that point because I had absolutely no awareness of where I'd been, what I'd done. But I just knew that that had to be the end.
The one time that sticks in my head the most was I wanted some help. Really, I wanted someone to talk to, someone to say, you know, just like help us really and say, right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to help you moving forward. And they invited me into a Marek meeting. So I went into the meeting and the police officer introduced us as, this is Sarah, she's the alcoholic. So I wasn't a person, I wasn't valued, and I think that spiralled my drinking to the point where I was drinking 3 litres of vodka a day.
I did the best I could. I was part of different churches, you know, in my 20s, throughout my whole life, to be honest. But I was still living that dark life, you know, going out, doing what I shouldn't have been doing, but I just didn't know how to stop, you know. Well-meaning people within the faith just said, oh, you know, you should be over this. But I just wasn't.
There was nobody, and it was more mental health that was underneath and underlying, but I didn't realise that till later years, you know, till I started having tests and therapy and things like that.
If I wanted to share that, I feel like I should have had a choice. I quite willingly share that I'm an alcoholic. It's something, not that I'm proud of. Well, in fact, yeah, I am, because I've worked hard to overcome it. And I felt guilt and shame like I did when I was abused as a child. Wherever you are in addiction, you have a trigger. My trigger is guilt and shame. So whenever I feel like that, it takes me right back to every event that I felt that way before. And that's exactly how I felt in that meeting, to the point where I couldn't even speak properly. You know, I'm a well-educated person. I'm all right at putting my point forward. You know, I'm all right at telling them I don't tell lies, I say it as it is. And after that, I wasn't able to give the opportunity because it absolutely threw me. I just didn't matter.
People from agencies and even people outside of agencies, they just see it as a type of joke. When I said, oh, I'm addicted to sex, they just think of, oh, you're addicted to sex. Oh, you know, they say it as a good thing, as a funny thing. They don't see it as a real problem, and they don't see the shame and what people will do in those situations.
The way they talk, you know, it's like in a different language, isn't it? You know, they expect you to understand the jargon and all this kind of thing, and they talk down to you, they're not to you, they talk at you. And even when you try and get your point across, it's like they brush it off. Yes, but, you know, they brush it off to one side. If you're doing well, you know, you could be sober for a full year and you relapse, you have one day, and they'll focus on that one day where you've had a relapse, not the rest of the year where you've done so well. And it's just it just makes you think, what the hell, you know, what's the point?
luckily for me, I'd kind of ended up in a prison cell. And so they had recognised after, you know, looking back probably at my file and some of the kind of my pathology and some of the stuff that I was used to doing, that I was an alcoholic. And the police had sent me to see their nurse while I was in custody, and she'd given me some diazepam. And so I knew that I wouldn't seizure if I went and sought some sort of help.
And I was staying at my cousin's, and I think that was like when social services really found out what was going on, you know, and they broke the door down, and I went to hospital. But that was just like one of the few times, you know, that happened. The only person that would take her was my nan and granddad, and they said they were too old, and it was because of that she got adopted. I went into St George's for a while.
At that point, I don't think I'd seen or heard from my children for about 4 months. And I was just desperately sad. It was just a horrible time where I was prepared to do anything. But what I couldn't have been was on my own. I couldn't have been on my own. I wouldn't have made it. And I don't know how anybody does.
It come to the point where I was back and forward at court all the time. And social services just, well, they believed everything he said because of my past. I got a CAFCAS worker eventually at court, and I thought, oh, this is going to be good, and she's going to see my side, and completely didn't. Took David's side. I didn't get a report or anything. I remember going to court. I didn't have a solicitor or anything because I've never usually needed one. I'd been to court, and he would like, right, get your contact back. And the woman said, she said, I'm going to advise that you don't see Tilly for 2 years. And I froze. I was like, are you joking? This was in court before I was about to go in, you know. I had no thingy up to it or anything. She said, yeah. She says, you need to get yourself sorted and learn to be a better mum. And that was it. I broke down in tears and I couldn't believe it. You know, I just thought, this is it. I'm so defeated. And I ran out the court. That was it. The judgment was thingied, and I got spent 2 years away from her.
Child services were demanding like drug and alcohol testing. I was trying to get into a service regularly to have these sorts of testing. The service just didn't have the capacity to drug and alcohol test me all the time. They were almost putting it back to child services and saying, if you want her tested, you do it. We haven't got the capacity to do that. But being told, no, you have to engage with your drug and alcohol service. So I was never ever really getting a chance to kind of prove that I was trying. There was just no working together from those two organisations.
The whole thing, just going to the family court as well, I just found that so painful. Like, yeah, I would break down. You know, it was just hard. It's hard to, you know, to go and say your personal things and to say what is deemed as failures in society.
Well, it's really difficult telling them the truth of how much you're drinking and that. You're scared to, because you know they're going to just come in with the bench straight away when you tell them how truthful you are. Like, at first when I went to rehab, I lied to them. I was like, I only have a little bottle of that. Till Beth realised this. She was like, you've had a good drink last night. Them should come to it with open arms and help with, not just take with bands away. There's plenty of help them can get for mothers like us. But the them just not interested in just taking the kids away.
When you're in active addiction, people tend to lie about how much they've drunk. It's a common fact. I've done it myself. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect that addiction. And it doesn't matter what you're addicted to. When you're in active addiction, you'll even lie to yourself about how much you've had or try to convince yourself it's not that bad. But when people are trying to get well, one of the first principles is you've got to follow an honest program. Honesty gets you well, lies keep you sick. But the minute you admit it, and it goes on all the systems, is the minute things change. From GP surgeries to police to wherever, you're always an addict first.
What wasn't made clear to me was we just want honesty, and honesty won't be used against you. What was made apparent from the start was the worse your addiction looks, the worse it's going to be for you. What probably should have been the case was, we just want to support you to know that you're going to get better. What we want is just tell us how bad it is. Like, please tell us what you're going through at the minute. And then the only way is up, because we can all work together to do this. It was very much, I just felt like I had to keep everything I was going through on the lowdown, because the more honest I was being, the worse it was getting for me. The less contact I was going to have with my children. I just couldn't be open and honest.
The other services that I've worked with that just totally, they depleted my mental health completely, you know. Yes, you know you've done wrong, you've done bad things and you've gone off track, you know, but there's no one beats yourself up as much as what you do, you know, and they've just got no idea the way they pull you down and you're not good enough, you can't do this, you can't do that. And you do think that, you know, if somebody's telling you it enough, it is what you do and what you think. And just somebody, I think if just somebody in the services had said, look, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can move on, and, you know, I've got your back and I'm doing this and I want to see you do well. Completely different. It would be completely different, you know. It would give you this spark just to see, you will get to see your kids if you do this.
Nobody was there to say how hard I'd worked. It hadn't even been noted by Child Services that I had 380 days clean and sober behind my back. I put that forward. And thankfully the judge from FDAC did say, why has this not been written down? Why is there nowhere here that says that it's 380 days clean and sober? And they apologised that it had been an oversight. That day is the only day in the 380 days that I have where I wanted to drink. Where if I had not had Recovery Church and the people that I called, I would have drank. And that to me seems appalling, really, that we were there to discuss me losing my children because of my addiction, yet nobody had written down how well I'd come on that journey, and nobody wanted to support me on that journey afterwards.
Recovery is about being grateful, staying humble, being thankful for everything. You're having faith, knowing that what you're doing, keeping it in the day, being truthful, being honest with others and yourself, and having a life. Like 8 months ago, I wanted to die. Today, I want to live.
I think it was when I first went back into the service with Basis and people started to listen to us, and then were actually telling me, it's going to be fine, you're going to be great, man. We'll get you sorted out, we'll get you this, we'll get you that. You know, and that's the only really time in them years that people actually listened to me for my needs, what I wanted.
I go to the cathedral, I go to the Recovery Church when I can, and I've never had people try and help us as much as the people in their rooms. And like, to the people that have given us the numbers and things like that, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'll keep going and keep going and keep going. Empathy.
My main purpose is for people who are battling addiction, they should be showed a little bit more compassion rather than be discriminated against because of their addiction by professional people. Listening is a really important thing. Once you hear their story and once you hear what they've been through, you would want to help that little more.
It made me feel better inside, and it gave me the confidence to talk to other people with respect, because them treated me with respect. I'm not just somebody that, all right, we'll do this for you, right, go away, come back tomorrow. No, they would let you sit as long as you wanted, until them are happy with what they've done for you.
What Tracy will do is she'll hear us, think, and then we'll work it out together. And that's really important. So Tracy doesn't speak for us, she'll speak with us. So I'll say to her, right, this is my problem today, and Tracy will listen to what it is, then she'll process it herself, and then we'll solve the problem together, and that's a massive thing.
There's people there who have different problems, whether it be gambling, whether it be messing about with women or whatever, anything. There's people there who are all trying to get better and trying to... I mean, I've had problems in the past with cocaine and gambling, not just alcohol. I empathise with these people and these people empathise with me.
It's all about understanding. Because some of the people that's actually working for services now have actually been there and done it. And it's taken them years to work themselves into the service to become fully paid members of staff. Which I think's great. For the services, having people there of understanding. Because then them can engage with that person who's coming into the service and just say, look, this is how we can help you. Because they help me do the same. And look at me now. So if that person who goes into the service can say, all right, if this person's been through it, maybe I can.
The things that helped me the most through my journey of addiction is actually people who's been there and people who's done it and people who's come out the other side, people who have a story to tell, not people straight from university out of a textbook and things like that. It's real people, real folk.
I think that every drug and alcohol service should have to have a percentage of lived experience in there.
They need to be trauma informed and they need to understand that about active addiction. You know, I don't want people cut off just because they're in active addiction. People want to talk, people want to hear, like people want you to listen. They want to hear your story. I share my story with so many people to give them hope. Because when you're so low, you've got no hope. So Tracy gave me hope that like my life is going to get better.
People with trauma need to be treated with respect. Initially, when you see somebody or speak to somebody the first time, some people aren't sort of like straight away initially saying, right, this is a trauma I'm suffering from. But they need to be treated with respect so the person asking them what trauma they're suffering from will get some insight of what sort of like help they need.
I do feel services need to understand trauma better. They need to give people time. I just feel everything's so rushed. You know, everything's fast. Not everyone's like that. We need time sometimes to get the trauma out.
We need to start making changes. And I know we are trying, but we need to have a holistic approach to recovery. We absolutely need to be asking people about their lives, their traumas, their support network, their housing, their debt, their health, their mental health. What's not good enough is that we won't treat addiction because of mental health and we won't treat mental health because of addiction when these are exactly the same thing. That to me is where we really need to start.
My hopes going forward would be to get clean, get healthy, get fit, and then start feeling pride in things that I used to do, like say going to work, coming back, feeling good about it, making money, looking after my children, looking after my partner, cleaning my house, doing everything that I was proud of doing not too long ago. Just getting back on my feet, getting my life back. That's my hopes for the future. I've got a lot to live for.
Well, my hopes for the future is to have an amazing relationship with my daughter. I hope she will want to see me. She's at that age where she can be asked by the court. Obviously, I would to keep my volunteering and just keep myself in a good, happy, healthy place. Keeping myself active, doing things that I like, being surrounded by people who are like me, you know, people who's been through this, that I can talk to, that I can relate to, knowing my triggers.
Well, I'm hoping for to be a coach shortly, a rehab coach. Doing, like how I was doing 6-month rehab. Like Joan, Karen were coaches. I want to do what them are doing.
I'm just a tiny, tiny fish in this huge pond and I can make a tiny difference. And so I'll continue to be an advocate for people who've been through this.
My hopes for the future, right, to stay healthy, and for Newcastle to win the Champions League before I die.